Edward Brown, host of The Best of Investing, here to remind you to tune in this week on Saturday at 8 p.m. Our guest is going to be Katrina Kraft. You're not going to want to miss this show. That's The Best of Investing on Saturday at 8 p.m. Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for our 5-pack tanning certificate given away during this show. That certificate's not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tambella Tanning Salon with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. Now, today we do have a special guest, Chris Papin, and the name of his company is Papin CPAs. Why? Because he is a multi-talented advisor with a rare blend of qualifications as a licensed attorney and CPA and insurance producer. Chris offers a holistic perspective, holding degrees from the University of Oklahoma, including a CPA designation and a Juris Doctor from Oklahoma City University School of Law. Chris has excelled. Dual expertise enables him to navigate complex financial and legal terrain, ensuring growth and compliance. His commitment to clients and innovative prowess, acknowledged by Thomson Reuters, I know them, and other accolades, establish him as a guide for small businesses towards prosperous futures. Well, Chris, it's an honor to have you as a guest.
Edward, well done. Thank you. I appreciate the intro.
And it's funny because I know a few CPAs who are also licensed attorneys, and they're usually the sharpest ones. It's really good. That, in fact, if I remember correctly, the best part for a client who is going through an audit is that, unless the rules have changed, CPAs don't have client privilege with the CPA, but the attorney does. Is that still the case?
It is. There's a slightly different privilege that applies, and the legal license has the broadest scenario. The good news is I don't deal with scenarios where that actually matters, where it's some sort of criminal investigation or something, but it does help.
When an IRS agent shows his card or his badge and says special agent, that's when you say, thank you very much, I need to call my attorney. I remember those days. I never dealt with them, but I know enough. So Chris, you work with business owners every day as both their CPA and attorney. And what's the biggest difference you see between those two, those who struggle and those who thrive?
There's one simple thing, and I think a good analogy here, I'll save for the end because it really kind of drives it home, but it revolves around intentionality. If you show up on a Monday morning and you know what your objective is, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you usually work towards that objective. Whereas many, and sometimes I'm this guy too, where you show up on Monday and you read your inbox and you let your inbox dictate the rest of your week. And that intention sometimes is lacking. So the hit home here is always, would you go to a new town without Google Maps or Apple Maps or something like that? And in today's world, most people would laugh at you and be like, oh my gosh, I use it all day, every day. But it's the functional equivalent in business when you just show up and kind of respond to things as opposed to achieving whatever that benchmark objective is. And that is by far the single success for people. I'm sorry.
You said the inbox controlling your week. Mine controls my life. So that's I think I like those people better. Okay, and let's see here. We're going to go to a break pretty soon. When we come back, we're going to talk also about what most business owners would say that they already manage their assets, their cash, equipment, and real estate. What are they missing? And when we come back, Chris is going to answer that question as well. And let's go to our first trivia question here. Who was on the first cover of the magazine Rolling Stone? And Chris, as a reminder, if you know the answer, don't say anything yet. We'll let you answer when we come right back. Call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate, which, by the way, is worth over $100. I also want to make a mention here for the Tahoe Lakeshore Lodge. We are at the end of summer, but get your last little bit of vacation time in to go to Tahoe. They have hundreds of feet of beachfront, so it's a great place to go for vacation. The Tahoe LakeshoreLodge.com to book your trip. Again, here's our trivia question: who was on the first cover of Rolling Stone? And call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. Stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with CPA and attorney Chris Papin. First trivia question: who was on the first cover of the Rolling Stone magazine? What do you think?
My guess is going to be Keith Richards.
You know, it's funny. A lot of people would have thought it would have been someone from the Rolling Stones, but no, it was John Lennon. But you're in the right era, though. So we'll give you a full. All right. We teamed the audience with something we were going to talk about, which was most business owners would say they already manage their assets, their cash, equipment, real estate. What are they missing?
Yeah, there's a couple of things here. The first one, I think, are people assets. And this is going to be both internal. You've got a lot of very talented people on your team that are helping you achieve objectives, and externally, you got a client base or a customer list or maybe projects. If you're more into the things business than you are the people business. But the lens I try to look through on this, especially with the changing job force, is you've spent a lot of time developing the relationship, particularly with your team. Are they happy? Are they comfortable? Are they achieving their objectives from within? Because it's a whole lot harder to go find somebody to refill that seat than it was in the past. And leadership training. Sometimes it's just charitable work, or maybe something as simple as like the team gets together on Tuesdays and has lunch. Mm-hmm. Lots of different things can fulfill folks from within. And oftentimes I think it gets lost in the shuffle. Because who do you spend the most time with other than your family?
Your coworkers.
Bingo.
Yeah.
The other one here that I think folks neglect are systems, routines. Maybe it's software in certain environments. But the question that always pops out is, hey, if you took a month off, would your business succeed or fail without you? And a lot of small business owners just turn white when that question happens. Like, oh my gosh, I can never do that. And that's a sign you need to be working on your systems, because the business should run without you.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Okay. And you talk about managing assets versus managing problems. Can you give us a concrete example of what it looks like in practice with one of your clients? Obviously, without divulging personal information.
Yeah, we always play the game of I change the he's to she's and change their profession. But the essence of this, especially in professional services, like when you're in a service-based business, like think hospitality.
Yeah.
If you're running behind at a restaurant, the experience when the person walks in the door and says, my name is, and I have a reservation at 7:00. If you say your table's not ready, please wait. It's a very different experience than if you say, we're so happy you're here. We'd like to introduce you to our bartender, Jamie. Jamie is happy to make you a drink. We have a couple of specials. Why don't you try one of those while we get everything prepared?
Oh.
That experience is identical in timing, but very different in customer perspective. And I think people miss that. It's managing the asset rather than managing the problem, if you will. You're taking care of your people.
I like that. Were you ever in the hospitality industry?
Yes is the short of it. I spent a lot of time there growing up in lots of different places, and we don't work with restaurants except for the one restaurant group that we do work with, because they speak our language. Sometimes I don't speak restaurant and chef, and I'm not as creative as they are, so it's challenging.
Yeah, but that's great though, because it's amazing that just hearing the two different ways of on the recipient's end. It's like, wow, these people, they really especially if you give them like a little treat or something ahead of time,
Right.
And sometimes at the end of the meal, like something that doesn't cost much, but it's sort of a just a little thank you that we're glad that you're here. I like that. And let's see here. Okay, there's some fascinating research and reference about cognitive load and stress. How does this actually impact a business owner's decision-making ability. Boy, I can tell you, stress will do you in. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the way I always start this is kind of with the fight or flight instinct.
Yeah.
Fight or flight is a biological reaction that happens before the logic process in psychology. You do fight or fight flirt first, then you trigger over to the learned behaviors about logic processing. So take that, compare it with the picture of a battery on a phone. If your battery is at 50%, you have the ability to handle 50% of the tasks. So it fits in your mind in a similar way. If you show up stressed out about 38 things at home, you're not bringing your A game to what's at work. And my sarcastic answer on this is a lot of times is, we've all worked with that tornado that shows up late. And by the time they get there, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I made it here on time. And you're like, you've missed 2 client meetings and already pissed off the 3 people that you stepped on the way in the door.
Yeah.
What do you mean you got here almost on time? It's very different than the person that showed up 15 minutes early, was there. Stress, I mean, we've all heard the statistics in medicine. If we
Oh,
can
yeah.
avoid it and find ways to manage it, it's incredibly important.
It's funny. It reminds me. I had a secretary one time who was she was I was a nice boss, and she'd come in a little late, and then got a little later and a little later, and finally I said, "Hey, Missy, you're coming in like 15 minutes late. Oh, traffic is really bad." I said, "Well, you got to plan for that and leave earlier." And she said, her answer was, "Hello, if I leave earlier, I'll get caught in even more traffic."
Maybe there's scenarios
Hey,
where that's
there you go.
true, but I'm not buying that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I think she actually thought that because it was, it was during commute hour. It's like, well, then, you know what? Leave at 1 a.m. and I'm sure you'll get here on, 9 hours later from 20 miles away. All right, we're going to go to our second trivia question here. Second trivia question. And again, as a reminder to Chris, if you know the answer, don't say anything quite yet. What letter do most English words begin with? Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. Stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guest, CPA and attorney Chris Papin. Second trivia question. What letter do most English words begin with? What do you think, Christopher? Chris?
I'm going to go with Wheel of Fortune says R.
Actually, it's S. You're very close. Very, very close. And Chris, you've given us so far some really good advice, whether or not you have a restaurant or not, just the idea of how to treat people and customers is good. What actual services do you provide to your clients, and how do people get a hold of you if they wanted to hire you?
Yeah, so there's really kind of 3 forms. CPA firm does traditional tax and accounting work. We don't want to just file your tax return or do your books. We're really in it for that larger, more forward-looking conversation.
Okay.
Law firm does a lot of business entity formations, estate planning, and kind of the things that businesses do, like buy and sell assets or other businesses. Easiest way to chase us down is Papin, Papin, law.com or papincpa.com. All kinds of good stuff on the websites, and that'll kind of point you in the rest of the directions.
So you'll set up LLCs for people and that sort of thing. You're in Oklahoma, right?
I am.
Okay. Do you mostly set up LLCs in Oklahoma or other states as well?
So my CPA license can carry me to all 50 states. My law license is limited. I'm licensed in Oklahoma, Colorado, and Texas. Occasionally I have clients that move. We have scenarios that pop up and we kind of follow them. So entities are usually pretty straightforward where we can help most folks with, but like an estate plan or something like that, if you're a resident of California or Chicago, things like that, we go find co-counsel to help us with the state specific items that are in there.
I remember, does Oklahoma have an income tax?
It does.
It does. Okay. That's probably why I set up my LLC in Wyoming.
There you
I didn't.
go.
Yeah. I got turned on to setting up a Roth LLC. So I'm the manager, but my IRA custodian is the member. And at first, I was very reluctant to do that, but then after thinking it through and talking with the IRA custodian, they said, Edward, this is like the only way you're going to be able to do this. So I kind of kicked and screamed, but then I realized, gosh, it actually gives me more freedom. You know, it may cost me a little
It
more to
does.
file forms and all that kind of stuff, but Wyoming's really good because their fees are low and no income tax. But I guess I'm going to still have to file a federal 568 or 1068 because it's an LLC, but it just won't pay any taxes because the member is a IRA custodian.
There's lots of wrinkles to this, so I don't want to lose anybody and make it seem too simple because you've got to really dot I's and cross T's. But this is a beautiful use case, and I agree with you. There are some scenarios like this. If you're savvy enough to make sure you've got those complexities, it does give a really powerful flexibility to folks to achieve things that you couldn't in more traditional
Well, and
vehicles.
that's the funny thing is that the retirement firm the custodian I'm using, they can only handle alternative investments. So when I had some
Yes.
cash sitting around, I said, well, wait a minute, I just realized I'm not earning any interest on that. Why not? Why can't we let's just throw it in a bank account? And they said, well, you can't do that. What do you mean I can't do that? What do you mean? And then they said, well, we only handle this. So I said, well, how am I going to be able to do it? And they said, well, you're going to have to set up an LLC. And I kept thinking, yeah, but doesn't that take it out of the retirement? And they said, no. You're the manager. We're the member. So I don't own it.
Hmm.
They own it. I go, oh, that's starting to
Yeah.
make sense. So it actually gives me some flexibility on that. Again, a little more paperwork, a little more fees, but not the worst thing in the world. All right, let's see here. So you have a unique background as both a CPA and attorney. Plus, you've coached soccer. What did coaching teach you about asset management versus problem management?
So I've coached soccer. I played as a young man. I've had wonderful experiences with diverse folks. If there's any international listeners, it's actually football. I agree, but
Yeah,
America has to call it
more than
soccer, right?
football, I know. It's only because we have
But
football we call it soccer. But yeah,
right. But the essence of it is the fundamentals are the same. About someone showing up late, you don't get to be late to the game. What do you
yeah,
do? Start with 10 people because somebody was late? I mean, that's not fair to the team. So a lot of
yeah,
the disciplines, the muscle memory that you would develop on the field, the ability to read the changes on the field are the exact same things you apply in the business world and your professional life.
yeah,
And if you don't balance those properly, you're either going to get scored on or lose the game. And it's the
yeah.
same thing in life. When the factors change, you got to change. And that's just the reality of it.
I like it. All right, let's cut to our next commercial break here. Let's see. Trivia question number 3. This one's kind of a different one here. What's the estimated population of ants globally? I mean, I don't expect you to get it down to the single digits exact number because there's a lot of ants on in the world. All right, call 888. This is more just kind of an interesting question. Call 888-912-1190. First caller with correct answer wins that tanning certificate. And if you're within a million, I will be really surprised. All right, that's our trivia question. Stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing with Edward Brown and my special guest, Chris Papin, CPA and attorney. Don't touch that dial. We are going to be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. Edward Brown here along with Chris Papin. Our third trivia question was, what's the estimated population of ants globally? What do you think, Christopher?
I'm going to
Christopher?
say more than 37 trillion.
Okay, well, that is true. 20
Robert?
quadrillion. Can you believe
I'm
20
nowhere close.
quadrillion? How they estimate? How they estimate? They count 1, 2, 3, right? This staggering number translates to approximately 2.5 million ants for every human on Earth. I'm sure I've had my share of my 2.5 million. And it represents a combined dry carbon weight of about 12 megatons, exceeding the total biomass of all wild birds and mammals combined. That's a lot of ants. Okay, you ready
Staggering.
for it is very staggering. Okay, I do have a silly joke of the week. So, um, my let's see here. My mom is not up on sports, so she thought Dunkin' Donuts was a basketball team, and a Giants fan, a Padres fan, and a Dodger fan are climbing a mountain and arguing about who loves his team more. The Padre fan insists he's the most loyal. This is for San Diego, and he yells and jumps off the side of the mountain. Not to be outdone, the Giants fan is next, and to profess his love for his team, and he yells, "This is for San Francisco!" And he pushes the Dodger fan off the mountain.
That seems right.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm one of the few Giants fans who doesn't hate the Dodgers. So friends know. All right. Let's see here. So you mentioned that problems compound just like assets, but in a negative way. Can you walk us through how that spiral happens?
In an essence, yes. I mean, it's no different than compound interest or things like that. There's lots of different ways you can think about this, but think of like the buddies that all get together and somebody says, "I've had a bad day," and then everybody starts to commiserate.
Hmm.
Well, if you lead the day with a negative or lead the week with a negative, or perhaps you say, I'm going to go in and try to solve problems. There's nothing wrong with solving problems, but if your focus is on the negative or the problems and rather than the positive outcomes or the values that you bring, that's where it starts to compound itself. I think people's focus gets a
Yeah.
little bit off or a little bit distracted. And we internally are always striving for a better tomorrow. Don't want to go too far one way or the other, but the sentiment that love can take people a very long way, take care of people, they'll take care of you is important to all of us. But then you get on the phone and somebody's grumping at you because the tax return's wrong or they paid too much money or what. So you end up in these competing scenarios where it's simple, just really simple to rephrase or reframe, kind of like we did the hospitality analogy earlier of
Yeah.
my sarcasm shines through on this, but client calls, "Oh my gosh, I owe so much in tax." We could be negative and grump about it, or congratulations, you must have made quite a bit of money.
Exactly.
It's that simple.
It's funny because I can relate to that because I'm having a bad day. Usually, I'm an optimist, but if you start having a bad day and then the phone rings, it's almost like, okay, what do you want? What bad news do you have for me? And it's funny because I
Right.
remember when I was doing a lot of tax returns and clients were complaining about how much taxes they were paying, and then they come up with some crazy thing like, should I go buy another car or a this or that? And I'd say, well, do you need it? And they'd say, no, but it would be tax write off. And I try to explain to them economics first and tax second. I said, let me turn this around just a little bit. You know how I charged you, $500 for your tax return back then, 500, and they'd say, yeah. I said, tell you what, I'll charge you $5,000. Well, it's tax deductible. Well, wait a minute, that's not good. I go, there you go. So
We do the exact same thing, and it's so funny. Like I will play a little bit of the game where I'll describe this wonderful thing, and it's just like the car. But hey Edward, would you give me $100,000 and in 80 I'll give you, or in a year I'll give you 80 back, and in 2 years I'll give you 50 back, and in 3 years I'll give you 20 back. And, they sit there and no, why on earth would I do that? I'm like, I don't know. You're the one that asked to buy the G Wagon, not me.
I know it's the same thing with time value of money, where sometimes people they just. I'm trying to explain it to this one guy, and I said, "I'll tell you what. You know what? You give me $1,000 now, and in 500 years, I'll give you $1 million. $1 million, but it'll be 500 years now. Isn't that good? And it's just like, well, I guess that probably doesn't make sense, does it? All right, last question we have for you here is for someone listening who feels like they're constantly putting out fires in their business. What's your advice for breaking that cycle?
Show up on Monday with one positive intentionality. If you don't change things, no one will. Now, sometimes it's hard to drill down on that positive, and if somebody needs one, take it just like the hospitality example that we went into. Instead of leading with, "Oh my gosh, I owe so much in taxes. This sucks. It's terrible." You can lead with, "You owe a lot in taxes. We're presented with an opportunity to do a lot of planning. Here are some things that could save you taxes. Let's figure out if it makes sense for you." You've got to find your version of that, but if you'll take those steps forward, it'll get you out of that other room.
I like it. All right. We don't have a trivia question, but I do want to make a last mention here for Navi Appliance. They do really good work. They show up on time, very reasonably priced. It's one of those things where, again, you have a bad thing happen to you where your appliances break down, but you want to deal with nice people and reasonably priced. Check them out. Navi, it's Navi appliance.com. You can also call them at 707-484-5766. Stay with us. The best of investing. We'll be right back with some closing comments. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guest, Chris Papin, CPA and attorney. No trivia question, but Chris, talk about the power of community.
People hear that, and I think they think their neighbors, their friends, and things of that nature as you go through this. I see it through a little bit different lens, especially for business owners, because there's kind of this lonely at the top syndrome.
Yeah.
And a lot of business owners don't necessarily leverage their trusted advisors the way they should. There's a place for a banker, there's a place for attorneys and CPAs, of course, because I am them. There's a place for financial advisors, there's a place for colleagues, and maybe other business owners that can just understand the pain points that you're having. But finding an environment where you can brainstorm and problem solve, and probably more importantly, recognize we're all fighting the same stinking battle. It's
Yeah.
normal. This is okay. You just don't get to talk to everybody about it. So
Good point.
somewhere in there, whether it's a trade group or maybe a chosen peer group, or maybe it's a hired group of folks, I think finding people you can confide in and truly tell the negative stuff. Because if you can't tell your trusted advisors the whole story, why do you have them?
I like it. Good stuff. If you would give out your information one last time.
Yeah, certainly. I'm gonna spin it a little bit, but papincpa.com is CPA firm, Papin, Papin law.com. And then also you can find me on LinkedIn. Just search for my name, Chris Papin. We give away lots of free business tax types of recommendations and tips. So I'm happy to meet with people and look forward to meeting your audience.
Love that. Let's see here. Do want to make a mention here if you're looking for short-term business loans, or if you need more real estate, let me put it that way, either real estate business loans, or if you're looking to buy your next house and you don't have time to go to the bank, or the bank won't lend it to you because you haven't sold your house, check out Pacific Private Money, because a lot of times they can lend you money to buy the next house and cross-collateralize it with both houses, the target house and the house that you're currently in. You don't have to move twice. That's always kind of a good thing. You check them out at pacificprivatemoney.com. All right. Let's see here. We do have our thoughts for the day. And here we go. So one advantage of talking to yourself is that you know at least somebody's listening. Like that.
It's
And
true.
if two wrongs don't make a right, try three. Why not? Right? All right. Again, Chris, give out your information one last time and give us one quick piece of advice.
Yeah, papinlaw.com, papincpa.com, or Chris Papin on LinkedIn. And probably the best advice I've got for just people and whatever they've got going on is if you take care of other people, they have a tendency to take care of you.
I like it a lot. All right, audience, tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.